Message number 2018. Her Excellency the Governor General to the Honourable the House of Assembly. Her Excellency the Governor General has the honour to inform the Honourable the House of Assembly that she will be absent from the country during the period August the 20th, 2018 to September the 16th, 2018 on vacation leave. Her Excellency further has the honour to inform the Honourable the House of Assembly that in accordance with the provisions of Section 29(1) of the Constitution, Mr. Kenneth Rudolph Hewitt, CBE BJH, will perform the functions of the Office of the Governor General for the period of Her Excellency absence. Signed, Governor General. Order. Honourable Member for St. Michael's South.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. I rise today to support the bill to amend the Road Traffic Act brought by the Honourable Member for Christchurch West. And while he might have said a number of things during his presentation, the Honourable Member made a point that I think has resonated with me, and on which I wish to begin. The Honourable Member for Christchurch West stated that, in speaking about insurance, that it was not for you and for your car, it is for all who use the roads. And that we have to make sure we are covered with insurance for these reasons. And so I think of the young lady who lost her life while she was exercising on the curb. The insurance was for her, and to the best of my recollection, the driver of that car was not insured. I think of the children on the ZRs and the buses and all forms of public transport. The insurance is also for them. And the old ladies and old gentlemen we see walking the streets, sir, the insurance is also for them. And while we offer today to come with a system that I believe is a lot more efficient than that which currently exists, we must remember that even though it is about efficiency, we still have a responsibility as a country to be driven by what essentially is right and what essentially is good. So, sir, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, on Saturday, while I was in Sky Mall, I ran into a government security guard with whom I used to work while I worked in the Warrens building, who told me that he had been in a car accident. As a matter of fact, I saw him walking with a cane. And he told me he was in a car accident, that somebody ran into the back of his car, and that it had caused him to have to leave work. And joking with the man, I said to him, well, I hope you've been taken care of and that you got your insurance funds. And he told me that the driver had no license and that the car was not insured. This was on Saturday. And that story is repeated several times by many Barbadians. What the member for Christchurch West is seeking to do is fundamentally right. And it is good. Sir, my mind goes back to 2007. I actually, on that day, it was a Sunday, I was attending the Barbados Civil Party's, I think it would have been perhaps the 69th annual conference. And I had a telephone call that my daughter and her mother were in a car accident. And so I left the conference and I ran to the scene of which I now call the crime, because the driver of that car had no license and the car had no insurance. And it is an occurrence that happens all over Barbados. Now, my 2-year-old daughter then had broken her leg in the car accident. And of course, at the time, I wasn't thinking about insurance or anything. I was concerned about the welfare of my child and her mother. But that this situation repeats itself on our streets, and that a responsible government has to do responsible things. And in many ways, what we are seeking to do here is the responsible thing. And I do not think that anybody here in this government is setting out to do harm on Barbadians. Indeed, the reverse is true. We are seeking to protect people, and sometimes to do so, you have to protect people from themselves. And we have a responsibility to make sure that those who drive on our roads abide by the laws of this country. And therefore, they should seek to have the necessary insurance. I am pleased to see that the Honourable Member for Christchurch West is making sure that that happens. And sir, what is the nature of this protection of which I speak? The Honourable Member for St. Philip West made the point while he spoke. He understood the Honourable Member for St. Michael West to be speaking somehow of a model of privatization. It sounded so to me too, that what was being suggested in relation to what was happening, I believe, at the transport board or whatever, wherever vehicles are now owned by the state that carry people, was a model of some sort of privatization. And we have taken great pains in this House, we've taken great pains in the Cabinet, in all of our conversations, to suggest that we will not approach the way we handle government business with, the Prime Minister uses the analogy of a cutlass and a scalpel, that we cannot treat to these matters with a cutlass, but that you have to take your time and perform a very delicate operation. And even if we are seeking to make some adjustments at the Transport Board, it cannot be the kind of reckless adjustments that would see people being sent home in droves. And that even as we seek to make adjustments, that based on our philosophical underpinning, that even as we restructure, we have to make ordinary Barbadians the owners of the means of production. So that even if you have to restructure, somebody ends up owning something. We have said, and the Prime Minister made it clear, that even though we cannot necessarily protect the job, we can protect the person. Yeah. And that the government will put in place, that which is necessary, even as we restructure, to make sure that ordinary Barbadians can live in this country. And the sin, one of the many, of the last administration at the Transport Board in relation to UCAL and the way they were treated, ordinary Barbadians, not having an opportunity, even though on paper they were given responsibility legitimately to do things, being the last to be paid, doing work and not being paid for it, work that they could do, being sent to private sector agencies under all kinds of schemes. So that ordinary Barbadians didn't have a chance during their tenure legitimately to become empowered in this country. While we may have to restructure, we will have to do so in a way that is conscious and cognizant of the fact that Barbadians still have to be able to eat. And I heard, and the Honourable Member for St. Michael West may have meant it differently, but I do believe that what I heard was a matter of a measure of privatization. And we will be very conscious when we engage the public in how...
What do you span? What's that?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, my honourable young friend out of the South is slightly misleading the House. I think perhaps, and I know he's very genuine in his contributions usually, and he intends well. I think he may perhaps not have been listening as carefully as he might have been. Perhaps he was making some notes while I spoke. But I actually was humbly suggesting to the Honourable Minister the very thing that the Speaker from St. Michael South is suggesting, that we bring people in Barbados into the ownership of the means of production. My emphasis was not privatization, it was partnership between state and the private sector in alleviating some of the cost burden that the state now carries, and at the same time empowering people who are working class entrepreneurs.
Thank you. Honourable Member.
So, thank you very much, sir. Form somehow of privatization. The focus of the government, sir, though, must be, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, on empowering Barbadians. And in essence, we're people who, ordinary Barbadians, who have to feel the brunt of some of this because of who we are and the values that drive us as an administration and as a party, must serve to maintain the dignity of Barbadians who have to suffer. We must do what we have to do, but we have to protect at all times the most vulnerable. The member for Christchurch West also made a point that there were vehicles that were bought, equipment, that was allowed to run to ruin for absolutely no reason at all. Things that the government are desperately in need of, that just sat on a lot and was allowed to run to ruin. And then the Honourable Member also suggested, I like the word he used, he said they were cannibalized. Parts taken from here and parts taken from there. This is equipment that the government needs. On the one hand, allowed to run to ruin, and then on the other hand, taken apart. I mean, come on. And there are many days that I ask myself, and I ask myself so genuinely, and I appreciate that the member for St. Michael West appreciates that I'm genuine in my concern on a number of these matters. But I genuinely ask myself, what did the last government do for 10 years? And how in clear conscience could a government allow a country to run to ruin when there were things that were needed and were not at all utilized? And you have to tell yourself that, I mean, these must be some unconscionable characters to treat the Barbadians in the way Barbadians were treated. And so our philosophical underpinning is rooted in something completely different. And yes, the Barbados Labour Party has a history of being efficient and being effective. But it also has a history of making sure that the average Barbadian can play a role in the development of this country, even in the harshest of economic times. And we decided that as part of our program, we must retool and retrain. And so that people will then have a chance to be part of the new Barbados. I understand to some people that the role of government must change. I believe that it must. And that in some cases where we may have been providing services, you may now have to facilitate as opposed to be the person driving the service. But that you must do so with a scalpel and not with a cutlass, so that ordinary Barbadians can benefit from whatever it is that we are doing. I heard the member for St. Michael West make the point, and I agree, that we might have to regulate the amount of hours that people are allowed to drive on the roads. While I was a student in PSV drivers, who might have been out from early morning to late evening, and they're tired. While I was a student in Boston, I remember there was a major accident of a man who was driving from New York to Boston because he hadn't slept. And he'd been working up and down, up and down. He got tired, he fell asleep at the wheel, and he caused a major accident. And it's not because you're heartless, but it's things you have to look at. But I know these men are doing it because they want the dollar. They want to earn a dollar. But we have to be able to protect people from themselves. And we've said we can't legislate everything. No country can be governed entirely by laws. The Prime Minister often says that she was told that there was a time when things that are convention in Barbados. would then have to be legislated. We can't legislate everything. But a man has to know that if he's tired, he has no right behind the wheel of a vehicle. A grown man has to know that if they have no license, they shouldn't be driving a car. I mean, you gotta know that if your car ain't got no insurance, it shouldn't be on the road. And even though we have legislations, people still break the law. And governments, like people, come down to priorities and choices. And some people have made some bad choices. But we have, as a government, to be responsible, a responsible government. Now, specifically on the road tax and the amendments. Section 4B1 allows for the waiver of the road tax. And where persons register between June 11th and July 1st, 2018, has paid the road tax in full, they could get back 75%. And that was because we are a government tool that listens. You will recall that after the road tax was, but the new changes in the legislation were put in place, there were some people who had just paid the road tax. And we said as a responsible government that we would make the adjustments so people who had paid the road tax after June 11th would be able to get back the money that they paid. And that was because Barbadians felt it and they complained about it, and a government that is responsive in this government listened and made the necessary adjustments. So people can now get back 75% of the monies that they would have paid after June 11th. But people were crying out for other things. And a lot of the things for which they are crying weren't done by this administration. A lot of the things for which they are crying, weren't because we won office on May 24th. There are legitimate concerns of Barbadians that they have felt were not properly addressed, even though they were articulated in the last 10 years. Sir, a constituent of mine, her daughter attends Grantley Adams School. She lives in Paddock Road. Her daughter attends Grantley Adams School. She has to be at the bus stop by 6:30 on a morning. If she misses the bus, that particular bus to Grantley Adams, there is no other bus until after 9 on a morning. She gets to school then around 10. If she misses the 6:30 bus, the bus that passes around 6:30-ish, near 7, she will get to school after 10 because there's no other bus. And it is not the member for Christchurch West's responsibility. Well, it is now, but it is not his doing. And I know he's busy trying to rectify it. But that student had 29 days late. The other issue that she raised with me is that if there's been a fight at the bus stop the day before or during the week, that bus driver ain't stopping at that bus stop, period. So many days the bus driver would just drive on past the bus stop. So the person now has to get to school late, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir. 29 times late during the period of the last term. And Barbadians are concerned that they're saying, well, if you're gonna make me pay this tax through my diesel, then give me better bus service. And I know the member is trying, but the government, the former government, allowed the buses to run to ruin. To run to ruin. They are also saying, because they have legitimate concerns in relation to sanitation, that if you want me to pay, then tell me my garbage is going to be collected. Because we may govern in ministries and govern in silos, but people feel it. They don't feel transport board separate. They don't feel sanitation separate. They don't feel healthcare separate. They feel all of it. And they're saying, if you're asking me to pay more, then give me more. And so we have the same situation with the sanitation trucks. For 10 years, people could not get proper sanitation pickups in this country. The Prime Minister and the members call it a lost decade. I call it a decade of decadence. Men enjoying themselves while people were suffering in this country. And of course, if you're going to make people pay more for roads, well, pay the road tax differently, then you have to fix the roads. And a lot of this, unfortunately, falls on the member for Christchurch West. But I have, and the Honourable Member for St. Lucie, but I have in my constituency a number of roads that I would like to see addressed. And I am encouraging Barbadians, therefore, not to mind that we have to pay a little more, because the Honourable Member for Christchurch West has given me the assurance, and the Honourable Member for St. Lucie, that my road in Beckles Hill, that I ask about every week, will soon be addressed, twice a week. That the road in Bradford's Gap, that is now a cart road, will also be, hopefully, I haven't raised that with you, but I'm raising it soon, addressed. And King's Village is currently being done. But we are asking people, sir, to bear with the government, because we've been in office now for 3 months, and we are trying desperately to address matters that had not been addressed at all in the last 10 years. The last 10 years. No buses, no proper sanitation pickup, potholes everywhere. Sir, any person who studies strategic management would know the best time to make changes are in the good times. These are not good times. The best time to make an adjustment would be when you have a lot. And in all truthfulness, I believe some of these changes could have been done in 2007. But 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011 onward, you couldn't make a single adjustment. So now it is faced and forced upon us to make these adjustments in what is perhaps the hardest of times. You should make adjustments in the best of times, and we are making them now in the worst of times. But the Honourable Member for St. Michael North East, the Prime Minister of this country, even though the times are hard, has guaranteed that she would take care of the people first and foremost before any kind of adjustment is done. And so we had no control over when we would make the adjustments, but we have some control over how the adjustments are going to be made. Because the government is about choices, and it is about priorities. And we have prioritized the interests of the average Barbadian. And this, for me, is really now a lesson in leadership. The difference between those who put people first and those who don't care anything at all about ordinary people. And the last administration used to boast about how they were the people, the government of the people, and the government for poor people. And I would say during the election that there must be the government for poor people because they're hell-bent on making everybody poor. A country like Barbados, known for all that Barbados has been able to do. A leader in the region. Now the laughingstock of the region. People asking what happened to Barbados. All the members in here must have heard that question at least once, including my good friend, the Honourable Member for St. Michael West. What happened to Barbados? And that was because of the way Barbados was governed over the last 10 years. And so, sir, I wish to support this bill brought by the Honourable Member for Christchurch West. I wish to support this bill that I know has the blood, sweat, and tears of the public servants in that ministry and the Honourable Member for St. Lucie, because it tells me that Barbados has got to a point where Barbados is working again, and that we are working on behalf of ordinary people. And at the end of the day, if that's not why we're here, then why are we here? Might as well shut the shop and go long home for real. If we are not here working and advancing the interests of ordinary people, then why are we here? And there has been a recklessness in the way the government has been allowed to do business. And that is probably for another debate at another time. But the clearest manifestation is on the streets, because you can see it. You can see the state of the road, see the state of the buses, You can hear almost the sound of the buses breaking down. Buses catching the fire on the road. I mean, buses coming to pick up buses that broke down and then break down too. What has Barbados been allowed to come to? And so I believe we owe the honourable member a debt of gratitude because he has been working very, very hard to right a wrong that he did not create. And sir, you know, this is not an easy road. It's not an easy road. We have, in many ways, tried to communicate and to articulate what, for the most part, is a very difficult decision. What, for the most part, is a very trying time. This is a difficult time to lead. But I am telling you, we have the opportunity now to witness leadership at its finest. And I also think we owe a debt of gratitude to the honourable member for St. Michael Northeast, who is leading Barbados in the finest possible way at the moment. And I often like to close with a poem, you know, because I like poetry. And there is a poem by Robert Frost, and he speaks of two roads. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But here we are, faced with two roads. On the one hand, we had that which we've had for the last 10 years. A government that at its best can be accused of doing nothing. And at its worst, well, and if you're being honest, of causing the most harm and pain on Barbadians that any government in Barbados has been guilty of. If you do an honest assessment of the last 10 years, you can think of almost nothing good that was done by an administration. Normally, you might find one or two bad things. When we started listing our mission-critical agenda, the things that we felt we had to come to office and do, a litany of woes. You gotta fix sewage, you gotta fix water, you gotta fix schools, you gotta fix social services, you gotta address culture, problems in labor, health care. Youth got problems. We came into office, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, and inherited all kinds of problems. We could stay on that road. Or we could take the other road. And two roads, the poem says, diverge in a wood, and I take the ones less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. Mr. Speaker, sir, we are taking the road less traveled, but it is a necessary road. And we do so, sir, we walk this road in the darkness now because many of the streets ain't got no lights. But we will bring light to the darkness. We walk this necessary road, the one less traveled. We walk, sir, on behalf of the people of this country. We do so to restore our international reputation. We do so to bring credit through our living to our nation. Because all of us at the end of the day are Barbadians, and when the rain falls, it doesn't fall on one man's house top. It ain't falling on DLP people house top and leaving out BLP people. It's falling on everybody's house top. We have a responsibility, sir, to take care of all, and it is with that that I wish to offer my fullest support to the Honourable Member for Christchurch West and this bill to amend the Road Traffic Act. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm obliged.
Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central. West Central.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. First, let me congratulate my colleague and friend, the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, for bringing this initiative, this amendment to the Road Traffic Act. Mr. Speaker, is it not only something that is needed at this point in time, but it's also in keeping with our maxim of promise made, promise delivered. And we made certain promises, Mr. Speaker, as a government, as it relates to our mandate and the fact that we must take care of mission-critical issues. But along with that, Mr. Speaker, the moral test of any government is how you take care of your most vulnerable. And to this end, Mr. Speaker, this act will on one stage remove an onerous tax, a tax that was like an albatross around the necks of the most vulnerable, poor Barbadians, and in turn put it on a tax associated with gas usage. Mr. Speaker, our mission critical issues will be taken care of on the one hand. There's a breath of fresh air, Mr. Speaker, in Barbados. And as my constituents traverse the South Coast, which borders on the constituency of the Member of Parliament for Christchurch West and obviously Christchurch South, when you walk past there or drive past, there's no more threat of effluent on the streets. That is a promise that was made and a promise kept. And I'm saying I have to congratulate the Member of Parliament for Christchurch West and the Member of Parliament for Christchurch East as well for moving with alacrity to ensure that affluence returns to the South Coast. Before May 2014, Mr. Speaker, sir, we had trip advisory after trip advisory. Trip advisory that seek to triple our country. We were moved from being called the Mecca of the Caribbean. We are now referred to as the Mecca. Persons are making laugh and sport at us. I am saying, and I see the clerks of Parliament laughing, but there's a breeze of fresh air in this August chamber as well. And I'm saying, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, that I heard the Member of Parliament for St. George South thought about sanitizing the August chamber, but I want him to know today that the people of this country have done that for us on May the 24th. And I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, we will continue to do the good do for the people of this country. We will continue to look after the most vulnerable. And act like this, Mr. Speaker, and an amendment to the act, Mr. Speaker, seeks to do this. We are going, Mr. Speaker, to use those funds collected to not only take care of situations similar to the South Coast, but there are a lot of roads in Silver Hill, and I have spoken to the Member of Parliament for Christchurch West about this. Silver Hill and Gull Hill, Church Hill, that I'm sure that the funds collected can be used for. And Mr. Speaker, in the advent of smart technology, and the fact that we are moving with alacrity to ensure with a touch of button that Barbados become relevant, I am saying, Mr. Speaker, and I'm begging the Member of Parliament for Christchurch West to put some muscle and energy behind introducing this technology at the License Authority, because you can hear every day the cries of Barbadians as it relates to the length of time they stay in the line to pay bills, pay land tax through the BRA, pay road tax. And I'm saying that when you sit down and study the incidence of chronic non-communicable illnesses, one of the most important factors is stress. If you are going to wait in a line for 2 and 3 hours, you can imagine the amount of stress that we created. It is also a loss of productive time. And we in Barbados cannot afford, at this point in time, to lose productivity. Time, the old people tell you time is money. Well, time is money. And the amount of time we wait in lines is now something that has to become the distant past. So that's why we refer to the insidious, invidious, incompetent, indifferent, and you could iterate, Mr. Deputy Speaker, response of a government to a national crisis. And I'm glad that the Member of Parliament for Christchurch East is here. And it may be flippant sometimes too, jumping in this said sewage that they're trying to get rid of. I don't know if they're trying to consume it. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, if this is the type of response that was happening before, we in this government, we don't have a plan of action. We have an action plan. And that action plan, ladies and gentlemen, will only redound to the benefit of Barbadians. because Barbadians must once again be able to punch above their weight. Barbadians again must once again be proud of their country. And I'm saying to the people of Christchurch, West Central, this new amendment is going to redound to their benefit. We are going to get some improved street lighting along Maxwell Hill from monies collected. We are going to get roads fixed across the length and breadth of Christchurch West Central. And the Member of Parliament for Christchurch West has indicated to me that, as his neighboring colleague, that is something that he will make sure he moves assiduously to do. I am saying it is these types of revolutionary mechanisms that will carry our country forward. And to this end, Mr. Speaker, I am saying that this government must ensure that those in the dawn of their lives, and when I talk about smart Barbados, we have to incorporate the young people of this country. And when I say we have to use our technology to advance Barbados, and I always go back to the fact that the creative economy must be the economy to chart the way forward for our country. And we must be able to incorporate young people who are absolutely interested in this type of technology. We must be able to find a vehicle for them by opening avenues. In the same way that we now have the green economy, and a lot of focus must be on the green economy. Although we are talking about a bill that is going to collect fossil fuel at the pump, I am saying, and the Member of Parliament for Christchurch West will also indicate to you at some point in time, we are going to look at vehicles, whether they're solar panel, whether they're electrical, to be able to reduce our fossil fuel in keeping with our green economy plan. And this is going to create a new set of entrepreneurs in Barbados. This is going to create a new set of job opportunities, especially for our young people. And I'm happy to be part of a government and administration who has the young people, those in the dawn of their lives, at heart. And I'm saying, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, that the Member of Parliament for St. Michael South will be happy when I say that the blue economy must come part of the progressive sector in Barbados. And young people can now venture into a different market, a different way of making an honest dollar as it relates to the blue economy. There's the alternative sector. So, Mr. Speaker, we are working hard to ensure that all measures are put in place, and we provide all the wherewithal as a government to ensure that the most vulnerable in this country are protected. And I'm saying to you, Mr. Speaker, almost each of us in here would have encountered a situation where we would have been involved in an incident or accident on the road where a person, for some reason or the other, it may be financial difficulty, it may be the fact that went to the license authority and refused to stand in a line for 2 and 3 hours. It may be a lot of different reasons, social or otherwise, that had prevented them from paying the license, the road tax, sorry. And only a couple of months ago, I encountered a young man who ran in the back of me. And when I got out, I only remembered it, and my consecrated friend, the Member of Parliament for St. Michael West, would endorse what I'm saying now, because I remember the book of Matthew 6, verses 14, when it says, forgive your brother and sister in the same way that God will forgive us. And if I'm wrong, I suspect the Member of Parliament for St. Michael West would correct me. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, you may do it as well as a pious individual. What I am saying is that I had to forgive the young man there and then. And I'm sure this incident could be extrapolated across the length and breadth of this country. So I'm saying that it is a way, and trust me, Mr. Speaker, I am not here to augment the cause of the insurance companies, but over the last decade, I must always remember to use that word, the Member of Parliament for St. Peter's, look at me every time he say last. Over the last decade of governance in this country, the insurance company, have done a tremendous job in putting plans in place, payment plans to accommodate persons who are having financial difficulties. I know they have some insurance companies that are giving 6 months plans now. So I'm saying the issue is not really the insurance, because there are mechanisms and plans in place to accommodate those vehicle owners. But the onerous tax, the one-off tax, that tax has always been a problem. And I'm glad that the Member of Parliament has devised a way to bring this tax to an end and introduce something that is more suitable and less painful. And I see him here with a number plate. I don't know if he paid road tax on that. C1414. And it shows with the use of technology, what can be done. And I'm saying to you, the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, with the use of technology, make sure that we encourage our young people to get in those areas, whether it's the areas of producing the stickers, whether it's the areas of help programming, the devices used. We have to encourage our young people to use the technology that is available to us. And as the Minister of Youth and Community Empowerment, I am begging him today to engage the young people in this venture, because this is a new entrepreneurial market that we have opened up. And that's what this government has been doing. We have been opening up pathways and doorways so that young people can have an opportunity in this country to be the best that there can be. And I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, that this new amendment not only on the one hand seeks to collect a much needed tax to help with our mission critical goals, but on the other hand, Mr. Speaker, it is able to open up a plethora of business opportunities, especially for our young people, and especially for the people of Christchurch, the good people of Christchurch West Central, who I'm sure will be able to benefit from the road works, benefit from the street lights that we put in place, and the advancement of the technology that will be used to facilitate this amendment. Mr. Speaker, we said from the onset that it's not going to be easy to be able to rescue, restore, and rebuild, bring this country to even keel. Some people, and you had a Prime Minister before who said it may be an odious task. I'm saying today, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is a task that every single member of this government has the elbow muscle, have the sinew to ensure that Barbados, once again, is able to punch above its head. And Mr. Speaker, Barbadians don't need darkness to shine. I'm sure all of us, with the right opportunities, and using government as a vehicle, we can shine in the brightness of day. And to this end, this government is going to move to ensure that our dreams become a reality, especially the young people of this country. We're going to make sure that the nightmares of the last decade will be just a distant memory. And at first it may be a bitter pill to swallow, but there's nobody out here that can speak about pills more so than myself. But one of the things about a bittersweet pill is that it may be bitter when it goes in your mouth, but it has sweet. It has a sweetness to it based on the results. The good old Buckley ad will tell you, it tastes bitter, but it works. It may taste bitter now, in a figurative sense. But the medicine, I see the honourable member for St. Philip North look wrong when he said the medicine, but the medicine prescribed by the honourable member of St. Michael North East and this entire government, the medicine prescribed is the right medicine for the right time, for the right people, which is the Barbadians that live in this country, that want to be able to support themselves, their families, and to live a comfortable life. And to this end, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that we have stopped the wrong things from happening. When you stop the wrong things, or stop doing the wrong things, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it gives the right things the opportunity to catch up. Today I'm saying, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that we are giving Barbadians the opportunity, and Barbados, to have the right things catch up in our country and surpass the wrong things that have been happening in the last decade. And to this end, Mr. Speaker, I am obliged. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable member for Christchurch East Central. Christchurch East, sorry.
Mr. Speaker, good afternoon. I rise to lend my voice to this debate as well. Let me start, Mr. Speaker, by saying I was a little bit worried when my colleague spoke just now, when he talked about the bittersweet medicine. It tasted bitter going in, and I was really afraid as to what was going to come next, but luckily, my worst fears were not realized. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, I am proud. I take pride in what we've been able to achieve so far as a new government. I take pride in the hard work and diligence of my colleagues in Cabinet. And I take particular pride in the efforts of the Honourable Member for Christchurch West. I do not believe that there is a harder working Member of Parliament than the Honourable Gentleman from Christchurch West. And he's ably supported. You know, sir, Batman has Robin. The Lone Ranger had Tonto. It was Bonnie and Clyde. There is the Honourable Member for Christchurch West and the Honourable Member for St. Lucie as his able sidekick and accomplice, sir. But being serious, the Honourable Member comes to every meeting of Cabinet with another suggestion as to how he can improve things in his ministry, as to how he can take the transport sector a step further, as to how he can re-implement the roadworks program, as to how he can address areas that have been neglected. It is a tireless enterprise on his behalf. Quite often people see the results of what it is that we try to do, but they don't know what goes on in the background. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition once, in a former life in parish land, introduced me at, I believe, my first ever public meeting. And he introduced me and said, "Cometh the moment, cometh the man." And I believe, sir, that the pitch was laid for a minister such as this. So having ably supported him and given my appreciation, I turn to some of the specifics of the amendment. We've all heard Barbadians commenting on the impact of the changes to the Road Traffic Act. Nobody wants to pay a new tax. Nobody wants to pay a different tax. People are afraid of what they don't know. People don't want to try things that are new. But the reality is we have to give this one a chance to work. If we think about what informed the decision to abolish the road tax and instead have the surcharge on the fuel, it was the simple fact that a lot of people were not paying the road tax. It's as simple as that. You discover this most often when people got in an accident. when they got in an accident that they could not move away from and the police came, you realize the road tax was out. If the road tax is out for a certain amount of time, that means the insurance is out as well. And it caused a lot of problems in the courts. It caused problems with personal injury claims. It was disadvantageous to innocent third parties, to victims in road traffic accidents. And it hurt the government of Barbados where it matters most, in its coffers. If you have a vehicle and you decide to put that vehicle on the road and you decide to drive that vehicle, then this tax will catch you. And I think that is the principal reason, one of the principal reasons for the change. Those who escape paying road tax cannot escape paying this at the pump. It is as simple as that. So for the people who are not necessarily fully supportive of this measure, then don't point the finger at the government. They should not be pointing the finger at the Honourable Member for Christchurch West. They need to start pointing fingers at the people who for years flouted the laws of Barbados and refused to pay the road tax. But, sir, it goes further. I am heartened by the assurance I've gotten from the member for Christchurch West that this is going straight into roadworks. It is going to rehabilitate a lot of the roads that needed doing. So he's collected from all of his colleagues roads in their constituencies that are in urgent need of being addressed. He has assured us that some road works will be starting almost immediately, with others to follow within a year. There's a schedule of road works that he has shared with us. We can't put it out, no. But I genuinely and firmly have taken confidence and have dared to hope that perhaps some of the horrible roads in Christchurch East will be addressed. Roads like that road behind the airport. Roads like the roads going down Gibbons, out behind Parish Land. Some of the worst roads in Barbados. I know we can't get all. I have submitted my roads, and I hope that when the Honourable Member for Christchurch West and the Minister of Transport and Public Works and Maintenance, that when he is giving priority to the roads he intends to address, he thinks back to this debate and remembers who the persons who spoke most fondly of him. Sir, it will come eventually. But when we are talking about roads and road maintenance, we also need to talk about order on the roads. I have a zero tolerance approach where it comes to people who fail to pay insurance. Not paying your insurance and driving on the road is not just taking a chance. It is being wantonly reckless. The insurance might not necessarily be there to cover you, because you can get third-party insurance that doesn't necessarily cover you, the driver. But the point of insurance is to cover the other person who may have no control over what it is that you yourself did. In my former life as an attorney at law, there is nothing more frustrating than somebody who does wanton recklessness on the roads. And quite often, the head people you see doing nonsense on the road are people who have no insurance and haven't paid the road tax. An accident happens, somebody gets injured, somebody gets hurt. And when you check, the person who is responsible for the accident has no insurance cover. They don't have 2 cents to rub together. They don't own their own house. They have nothing to leverage as collateral for the injury that they did to the other person. And quite often, it falls flat. It doesn't make sense suing a man of straw. So he may get a charge. He may get a conviction. He may pay a fine. But that does not help the person who is crippled. That does not help the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, whose nice car was written off, albeit 10 years old. But But the fact is, all the sorries in the world are not going to help. Insurance is there for a reason. So it is not just, I took a chance or I'm taking a chance. You made a choice. The people who drive on the roads without insurance have made a choice to do so and put other people at risk. There should be a zero tolerance approach to people who drive without insurance. Mr. Speaker, I am hoping that in this new iteration, with the stickers and the ability to track people, because now you have a sticker as proof of your insurance. It is one thing if you don't have your sticker on. But if you go so far as to take your corrupt and illegal practices as to forge and put on a sticker, then the hard hammer and heavy hand of the law should drop on you, and you should have no defense. You should go to jail. You should go to jail for attempting to forge the sticker or purporting to have insurance when you do not. Too many people have been hurt with this. It is selfish, it is inconsiderate, it is illegal, and it is reckless. As we on the subject of selfish, inconsiderate, illegal, and reckless, let me turn my attention now to the ZR drivers. I am not lumping everybody into one. I am not lumping everybody into one because I've heard the saying that all politicians corrupt. I do not believe that. I have heard all lawyers are liars. I definitely don't believe that. So I would be the last person.
You don't believe that? Okay.
I have heard nobody from St. Thomas can swim. But I would be the last person, Mr. Speaker, to paint everybody with one brush. But I remember quite clearly when the PSVs fought for the right to use the bus laybys. There was a time when only the transport board drivers could pull off into the laybys, and the PSVs fought for the right to do it. They said the inability to use the laybys was disadvantaging them because they had to stop in the road, blocking up traffic, while the transport board buses got to pull off. They now have the right to use laybys. Sir, I am fed up of seeing the PSVs stop in the middle of the road, blocking traffic from passing. I am fed up of seeing the PSVs stop right on the corner of a road that you can't come out to block you from passing or block anybody else from getting on in front of them. These are choices. And we, for some reason, have accorded unto the reckless PSV drivers. I'm not talking about all, I'm addressing this now to the reckless ones, the lawbreakers. We have accorded unto them some degree of tolerance as if by right. That tolerance should be zero as well. Why, Mr. Speaker? We believe we have to legislate for it. We believe that we have to educate for it. We believe that we have to cuddle and handhold and guide, keep people towards doing the right thing. I do not believe in that. If the law says X and you choose to not do it, you should feel the weight of the law. A decision to not stop at the bus stop is a decision. The choice to stop in a corner is a decision. The choice to drive slowly on Highway 7 in rush hour, backing up traffic for miles behind you, is a decision. The choice to overload your vehicle is a decision. It's not Kadir. I don't believe in Kadir. When you go off route as a PSV driver, the insurance does not apply to you. If you have insurance to play a certain route and you decide to go off that route and you get in an accident, the insurance is not paying. So everybody who paid their money and got on that bus expecting to get to their destination safely and be covered by your insurance, every person that you chose to take off route, they did not volunteer to go there, you chose to take them there. If you get in an accident, they're a victim for whom they have no insurance cover. That cannot be tolerated. When you overload your vehicles, you get difficulties with insurance as well. If you're licensed to carry 20 and you have 25 and you get in an accident, you're going to have hell with your insurance. The public who pays to get on a PSV or any vehicle that is for hire has a right to believe that that vehicle driver is going to drive and obey the laws of Barbados such that their insurance will not be forfeit and that anybody in that vehicle will be covered. Why I say it is not a mystery? About 4 years ago, I had an article to send to the paper, and I wrote my article, and I happened to let some friends read it, and everybody told me, please don't do that. You're about to run for office, please don't do that. Right? Everybody gonna make $1, you're gonna put yourself in trouble. Well, sir, to be honest, I wasn't planning to speak, but I could hold it to my breast no longer. I had to play my conscience on this one.
You're gonna let us know now.
I'm gonna let it go now. That's right, sir. Breathe. The point I'm making, sir, there is no mystery to this solution. When I went to Trinidad as a law student, the year I got there, the ZRs, the equivalent of the PSVs, were doing as they like in Trinidad. They were a scourge in Trinidad. And then all of a sudden, it stopped. In the space of 1 day, it stopped. Why? Because the Trinidad government got militant. If you are licensed and insured to carry 20 people and you have 21, your license is forfeit. Not you go and beg for a break. If you are licensed to carry 20 and you put in that one extra person, that is the end of you as a public service driver. So there's no jamming up in the bus. If the bus has 20 seats, 20 people sit down. And if you're trying to fly down that bus and the man knows he has 20, he is leaving you right there. The speeding, I think they have a provision there, sir, that if you have 5 reports on your license within a year, not that you, the driver, lose your license, the owner loses his permit. So it makes then the owners responsible for the people that they hire. Half of these ZR drivers who find themselves in difficulties in the court laugh at the court. The men go in there and they plead guilty. They plead guilty, they pay their fine, and out they go. Because it is a business balance. It's the cost of doing business. You get the reports, you pay your fine, and you go to sin again. In Trinidad with the PSVs, they stop at the bus stop and nowhere else. At the bus stop and nowhere else. And it happened all in one because a government said, enough is enough. This has gotten out of hand. It stops now.
Right.
And I don't wish, having extolled the virtues of the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, to even presume to advise him as to the way he should go, because I know the good member will get there all by himself. I am just getting these things off of my chest. And if they help to speed up the process to that point, then so be it. But sir, laws are there for a reason. Order is there for a reason. Everything in the Road Traffic Act is there for a reason. The Honourable Member has made his amendments for a reason. He decided to put stickers on the license plates for a reason. He chose to create a class of commercial vehicles, and I applaud him for that. He chose to create a class of commercial vehicles for a reason. The clauses and the provisions in the Road Traffic Act and the supporting legislation are there to provide order on the road. Among other things, to provide order on the road. I believe half of our issues with rush hour traffic would be solved if we followed the law. Now, there's a new government. We're trying a thing. We are looking to try to bring Barbados back into balance in every aspect that we can. We're trying to make sure all the financial rules are abided by. We're trying to make sure that the ministries do what they're supposed to do. We're trying to ensure that procurement practices are followed. We're bringing in amendments as we believe they should be, and that are in the best interest of Barbados and Barbadians. But we're doing it for a reason. If we've identified problems and we're trying to correct them, then in order for them to be corrected and to see the benefit of the law has to be followed. It has to be followed. And that is especially the case with the Road Traffic Act. I have said all I had to say. Mine was meant to be a very, very short intervention. And I just want, once again, to clarify a point. I believe that the PSVs are a necessary part of the transportation system in Barbados. They are critical to our transportation system as we know it, and perhaps into the future. But the PSVs are not a law unto themselves. In everything, you will have some bad apples. And unfortunately, sir, there was a quote that my good friend gave, where I think the rain falls upon the just and the unjust. When one person does bad, everybody pays the price for that in order for good to be done. But it is not that difficult to follow the laws. I stop at a stoplight. I stop when I get to a junction. I try not to speed. And when I catch myself speeding, I reel it back down below the speed limit. I used to pay my road tax. But the point is, I do it. Most of us do it. If you've ever driven with the Honourable Member for St. Thomas, you will realize, sir, that she stays well within the speed limit. And she stops to let out everybody.
Bad.
And she's the most courteous of drivers, not just in letting you out and extending the courtesies, but also leaning out the window to shout and wave your name and wave at you. But the point is, it's not that hard to follow. The point is, it's not that hard to follow the law. Sir, I wish to commend the Honourable Member for Christchurch West and the Honourable Member for St. Lucie for the sterling job that they're doing and the initiatives that they're bringing to the Parliament in the name of road traffic and generally in relation to public works in Barbados. And I fully support this amendment. I look forward to seeing what else the Honourable Members come with, because they pleasantly surprise me over and over, and they create the standard for how ministry should be run and what ministers and public servants should be doing. So I fully endorse and support the amendments.
I'm obliged. Member for St. Philip North. St. Philip North.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I've been waiting with bated breath to be able to stand up, but give way to my colleagues. So much for the adage, ladies first. I come with no poems or Bible verses. I'm not as good as some of you. But I come to say congratulations to the Honourable Member for Christchurch West and indeed St. Lucie. I think the measures you all have taken are commendable. The country basically has been waiting patiently, some not so patiently, on an ease from the lump sum payment to the road tax. And while many complain, and probably, I don't want to go ahead, but probably more so from St. Philip North, because most of us work in town, in the city, outside of St. Philip, so we kind of get to use more gas, so the pay-as-you-go system, as the Honourable Member for St. Philip West said, probably we might pay a little more, but that will encourage carpooling, which I think is fantastic, because it would decrease the carbon footprint that we have in this small island with the exhaust fumes. I think it's commendable about the reimbursement of the 75% reimbursement on the road traffic, on the road tax for people that paid after June 11th. That needs to be applauded. I'm just sorry I didn't fit into that bracket. It was about a month out. And I think generally, the people of Barbados understand that we all have to contribute, we all have to pay, and we are happy to use. I wouldn't be a Filipino if I didn't quote red plastic bag. A little with content is great gain. And it's true, the country needs the money. We need it badly. We need the roads, we need the debushing projects. And I'm grateful to the honourable members who have been so kind as to take my list of roads. He asked for one, I gave him many. I gave him many.
Did have many roads?
I gave him many.
Okay.
People are viewed that my predecessor did so many roads, but I mean, you could only do so many roads 2 weeks before elections. We need more roads. And we are eager to see where our money is going when we go to the pump. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm not only here to commend the honourable members, but I would not be a representative for St. Philip North if I did not bring the questions that I am being faced with every day. And I'm sure the honourable members of St. Thomas would agree with me when I had many teachers that said no question is a stupid question. Just asked it. I have people in my constituency who are asking questions, relevant questions in my book about things like what is happening with the electric vehicles. We don't have many, but it would be interesting to know, and I'm not privy to cabinet, so maybe that was discussed, but it would be interesting to know what contribution the electric vehicles make with respect to taxation to fix the roads. I have people like small, what they like to call landscapers, who use whackers and drive mowers and lawnmowers, which have never seen a day on the road, but get the gas at the same pumps. And they're curious to know if there's anything that will be done. I mean, it might seem a small amount to you or me, but to them, 40 cents per litre on something that they do every day to earn a living is important. There are people that use generators, they don't go on the road, that use gas. It would be remiss of me if I don't ask questions like this. Maybe the honourable member for Christchurch West might be able to answer some of them. I welcome measures to crack down, any measure really, to crack down on the non-payment of insurance for cars. We really have no excuse, none whatsoever. The insurance companies have made it easier. Some insurance companies give you a year to pay. So we really have no excuse with respect to that. Is what we should be doing, to stand up here and argue that if they're against the law, if they don't pay, it's against the law, lock them up. That's a given. I will not stand here and belabor the point. If you do wrong, you pay for it. And that is across the board. I commend the sticker that the honourable member brought to some extent. My problem with it, and it might seem simple, I had no problem putting a sticker on my windscreen. If the car is locked, nobody can vandalize it. I park sometimes among many little children, and little children are like puppies. Anything shiny and small and in the name of a sticker, they pick at it. So maybe it might be helpful to revisit putting it back into the windscreen, where when I lock it, he says no, but I'm still staying in it. Where I lock my car and park, I know when I come back, the sticker will be there. It's easy to see in an oncoming car, even for police officers, that they don't have to stop you and bend down and read July 2019. Just a question I'm putting to you. The other thing, although you're doing a very good job, and I think I brought this up to you, now I know, I am getting calls every day at the constituency office on my cell phone about people who had applied and got approval for ZM licenses, taxi licenses, and having trouble to actually secure it. I have people that have cars and vans waiting on them at dealers. The banks have approved their loans, and it's a matter of a phone call. It should have been, but you're getting questions like, call your MP. I think gone are the days with all this red tape, where everything is call your MP. I should not have to be writing a letter for a constituent to go down to MTW or licensing authority to get this done. If that's the way it is, you pay for a license, you do the relevant, what have I got to do with it? Give the people the licenses. I had a young lady that worked with me who decided to go into taxi licenses. She went to license the taxi. They complained about the taint. She left the same time, got back in an hour, and was asked to pay another $100 because she left. These are things that need to be fixed and addressed. The whole system of standing up in long lines at the licensing authority to renew your license. Truth is, I send somebody, I can't deal with it. We have come to the computer age, we have come to the internet age, credit card age. do something. I shouldn't have to leave home to renew a license. And I know every member in here is feeling the same way, although they don't say it. Things like speeding tickets, parking tickets, and it was addressed before, and I know somebody said it, can't remember who, not today. There have to be a way to avoid going into court, unless it's repeat offenders, where you should be able to pay the ticket and move on. People have spent a day in court missing work to pay a parking ticket or a speeding ticket. That has to be over and done with. I would like to talk about the buses, and I'm happy that the news I heard that you have increased the fleet greatly, given the new school term that's about to start. I had a complaint from a neighbor of mine that says, and this is a plug for the member for St. John, students who walk up to Blaze Hill in St. Philip, because they can't get a bus, they leave home at 5 o'clock so that they could get a bus in Blaze Hill to get to school. Unacceptable, and I know you'll be bearing this in mind with your added fleet, not new fleet, but added fleet. And with that, I want for you to bear in mind the disabled in our community. Before the elections, I had a complaint from a mother whose child is Down syndrome. She was required to walk from her house to the front road, which was about maybe 2 miles, to get a bus, to get to 6 roads so that they would get on the bus allocated for the disabled to get her to school. Despite many letters through the last administration, nothing was done. I will be happy to speak to you on it later, but people like this need to be looked after as well. I look forward to the day when the breathalyzer test that caused so much of a flurry in the media is actually enacted and used. In my profession, I see people with accidents, and sometimes the victims, as I could call them, the victims complain that the driver was smelling the alcohol. Where was the breathalyzer test? People are being killed and hurt every day. We need to get that up and running. Somebody spoke about the timing, yes, the Honourable Member for St. Philip West spoke about the timing of the trailer heavy-duty vehicles on the road. I would like the same to be said about the MTW workers that repair the roads, because oftentimes you're leaving from St. Philip. If you don't leave by 7, there's a lot of traffic, and then you meet road works in the morning when you're trying to rush to get to work or to Parliament. I think we need to get like the states and put some of these road activities at times where the traffic is not as busy. That is a plausible, I would like to see you consider that for one. Traffic congestion, other members mentioned the flyovers. I think at the time that it still is a fantastic idea, and I think the time, you're welcome. The time has come where if one government has come up with an idea, and it's a good idea, elections come, elections gone, new government, and because it's a change of government, all the plans have been put on one side. Stupid. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea. It's not easy going through traffic. I don't come down to town too often, thank the dear sweet Lord. But the few times I come, you're stuck in traffic in front of you, and you could just see the flyover working. We need to, when we get some money, revisit that as well. Things like, I would like to see, I think in the States, the law is that school buses, you do not pass a stationary school bus. I lost a patient, a child, because of this. She got to the bus, crossed the road, and that was the end of her. I don't want to see this again, and it happened on 2 occasions with 2 young people. We need to put in that law that you do not pass stationary school buses. It is a dangerous practice. And that will expect, well, I don't know how you work with the PSVs, because like the Honourable Member, I'm just fed up with traveling behind them. It's time for them to be accountable now. But we need to put that in practice where the children, our school children, are safer on the road. In the future, I mean, the talk is about non-communicable diseases and exercise. In the future, I hope to see lanes for bicycles and pedestrians. I think it's worthwhile to encourage bicycle riding. There are a lot of cyclists on the road now. They've taken up on the sport. I had a good friend of mine that he was riding quite happily, and then he ended up on his hands and knees because a car came from behind. When we do get the funding, a bicycle lane or pedestrian lane would be greatly appreciated. Carbon footprint again, we need to decrease that. These are some of the issues I have, but we will get to that in time. I think on the whole, though, the measures are fantastic and deserve commending. I hope that you'll bear in mind the measures that I came up with. And I thank you so much for your ear, Deputy Speaker. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Member for St. John.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I too want to lend my voice in support to this particular bill, because I am aware that not so long ago there was a major paradigm shift in this country, and it was felt, I'm told, on a regular basis, even more so in St. John than the rest of the country. And, you know, today's exercise is a clear example as to why that shift took place. Because for 10 years, we had a grouping in this August chamber that were masquerading as government. And we would have seen situations where tax after tax were only adding burden to all of the constituencies in this country. But today we are seeing a tax which I believe a shift that will benefit the constituents of St. John and by extension the wider Barbados. Like many of my colleagues, I have been agitating for a while since May 24th about the road network in St. John and the state of the road network in St. John. And I believe that with the shifting of this particular tax, the removal of this tax and the one at the pump, and if it is going to bring any type of relief to the road network in St. John, then I am going to support this 110%. Mentioned before was the need for bus systems in some constituencies, and I'm also making a point to the two ministers responsible for that situation in St. John to be rectified. I would have gone to the bus terminal on several occasions and I saw buses moving with 4 persons on Martins Bay and Sergeant Street, bursting with people, and I'm wondering who's in charge of the situation that a bus would move from the Fairchild Street bus terminal with 6 persons, and we have in excess of 100 in lines for those buses who are going to St. John. And I believe that, you know, the time sitting of the House, and every single time that I visit this August chamber, again, I understand why that shift took place on May 24th. Because every single ministry that presents in this particular chamber are bringing proactive approach to government, bringing legislation that will benefit the country as a whole, and not seen as just a chamber that was an ATM for a group of people who are no longer on the political landscape. And the people of Barbados took care of that. So I am saying that to the Honourable Member for Christchurch West and St. Lucie, we welcome this, because the reality is that for those of us who own vehicles, in most cases that road tax came at a time when money was not in your pocket, and it was stressed to find money to pay $450, $1,500, $600, whatever the value was at the particular time. So the fact that you may end up in a year paying more than that at the pump, it is still a fact that that money, for example, those persons who would have been paying in this month with back to school, we could understand the necessity of having that additional cash to do exactly that. So I believe that this particular initiative, the fact that if you juxtapose what is happening in the last 3 months to what took place for the last 10 years, then it is very, very clear that all of the ministries of the Barbados Labour Party are working for the betterment of the people in Barbados. And I know that we will continue to do exactly that as we push ahead in terms of meeting all of what was identified in our manifesto. The mantra is one of promise made, promise kept. And every week and every month, every day, you can see evidence of that happening as a result of proactive ministers and a leader who is leading by example from the front. So when we see this, I mean, I have been asked, similar to my colleague who spoke before me, I have been asked several questions in relation to what is going on with the road situation in St. John. Like I said, I have been asked questions in relation to reimbursement of this particular initiative, funds that are coming back when you write the Ministry of Finance. And all I'm saying is to hold on, because I am aware, like I said, promise made, promise kept, that everything that we put out there will eventually materialize and redound to the benefits of those persons in St. John and the wider Barbados. So the reality is that when these type of initiatives are placed on the table, I mean, there is, in some cases, that concern about the impact, how it will impact families. But then as persons begin to realize what really and truly the measures are, they understand that we're in a difficult position in Barbados and that there will be a little fallout in relation to some of the measures. But down the road, the long-term benefits will always be something that we are aware of. We are cognizant of the fact that these things need to happen at this particular time. The 10th sitting of Parliament, and if you look at the number of legislation that would have passed through this chamber, it is amazing that persons can be so focused to the task of moving this country forward. And I'm privileged to be part of the process. Very, very privileged to be part of the process, because I am acutely aware that persons in St. John at the end of the day will benefit from all of these initiatives that we're in here trying to push through to make law. I am very, very cognizant of that. And I have some issues in St. John in relation, like I said, to the roads. The Honourable Member for Christchurch West would have indicated before that there's only one road that you can have at this particular time. 30 roads at the national level. There are more than 30 roads in St. John that require urgent attention. And I would like at some point in time that the two honourable members from that particular ministry join me in a tour of St. John so that I can clearly identify and that you can see for yourself the issues that we have been facing as a result of the last 10 years of neglect, not only by the MP for that particular constituency, but the government that was in place at the time. So, in the essence of time, I know that persons still want to contribute, but the fact that 20,000 vehicles are not paying tax on the road is no easy thing to wrap your mind around. I remember an incident during the campaign when one of my staunch supporters came out of a side road in the constituency of the deputy speaker, and an almost brand new Suzuki van smashed into the vehicle. And on impact, 4 occupants of the car got out and ran away. So, I mean, it is clear that they were not legal. It is clear that either insurance or road tax or driver's license were not in place. But the fact that we have something now that will capture a wider spectrum of those persons who are on the road is welcome. Like one of the members before, I am concerned and I'm waiting with bated breath for the two honourable members as well to fix the ZR problem. And I want to lend my voice to that particular concern. Because if you're on the road, you recognize that this particular grouping is more or less a law unto themselves. And I have heard several solutions being posited in terms of how we should treat to that particular grouping in Barbados on the road. And I hope that the two honourable members for that particular ministry, in the same way that you're bringing legislation that is timely, legislation that will impact the country, will find a solution to the vexing problem that we know as the ZR culture in Barbados, because it is impacting every single road user in this country. And we must find a solution. The former administration had 10 years, and we know what happened in the 10 years, because we are treating it as lost 10 years. 10 years that we are now fighting to recover, fighting to move forward. And I seriously hope that legislation will pass through here very, very soon, that we will find a way. I know some of the solutions have been touted in cabinet, some of the solutions have been touted elsewhere, but I hope that you goodly gentlemen will find that solution that we can once and for all bring some kind of stability to that particular problem that we have on this landscape. And with those few words, because of the situation, I am obliged.
Obliged. Member for St. Philip.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I rise this evening in support of the Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2018, and to first of all congratulate the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, and indeed the Honourable Member for St. Lucie, both of whom have worked at pace and tirelessly to bring us to the point where, for the first time in Barbados' history, Barbadians can wake up without having to worry about whether or not they have paid for a vehicle to be on the road by way of a road tax. And Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I am saying this cognizant of perhaps one of the best quotes I've ever read. Cicero once said, "The good of the people is the greatest law." And if you were to seek to contextualize that, I would then want to frame this presentation, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, from the point of view that we are in a position where perhaps we can move beyond having to spend so much time on one, whether the timing of the change took place with when I had to pay road tax, or whether or not I am paying more, but more importantly, how better would our society be because of this change. And Mr. Speaker, if we are also to be mindful of the fact that we've committed ourselves, and we've heard repeatedly our Honourable Prime Minister, the Honourable Member for St. Michael North, he said that as we go forward, we have to constantly remind Barbadians that we have to retool and empower, and that we have to retrain and enfranchise Barbadians. Then I believe that all of us have a stake in this. And so, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I've heard a number of things that I perhaps believe we need to clarify. And I will seek so to do, Mr. Deputy Speaker, by reminding Barbadians, first of all, that they are juxtaposing the abolition of a road tax with the introduction of a fuel surcharge. Mr. Deputy Speaker, In Barbados, on June the 1st, 2017, an excise duty of $3.05 per litre was placed on gasoline. You still had to pay road tax. Mr. Deputy Speaker, an excise duty of $2.25 per litre was placed on diesel. You still had to pay road tax. And no matter what time you fill your tank, if your road tax was due, you still had to pay it. So that when we seek to juxtapose the abolition of a road tax where you will no longer have to pay, we seek to create confusion and mischief amongst people. And I found it unfortunate, even though I am glad, that we have the type of Prime Minister who has said, look, if you talk to us, we will respond. And in that retooling and empowering and retraining and enfranchising, she has also gone the other step in saying, look, let's be fair. If you had paid by a certain time, you get back 75%. But in reality, Mr. Deputy Speaker, on June 1st, 2017, nobody was getting back anything. And they were paying excise duties in addition to paying road tax. And that point has to be fundamentally understood. Because I have found in this country, Barbados, we find it easy to criticize things that are patently, obviously better for us. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, would you imagine that at the same time when the excise duty was introduced, a 400% increase in national social responsibility levy took place in the same country? So you had the excise duty, no cancellation of road tax, plus a 400% increase in SRL. And if that wasn't bad enough, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I remind Barbadians that they were also paying a commission on Forex transactions, so that if your son or daughter was attending university or college overseas, every time you had to make a payment, you had to add on 2%. So what did you have? You have a 2% commission fee, 4% increase in SRL, in addition to $3.05 per litre on gasoline, $2.25 per litre on diesel. That is what took place, Mr. Deputy Speaker. But on the other hand, Mr. Deputy Speaker, here is Barbados, where there will be no longer a road tax, there will no longer be any NSRL. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, Barbadians can now enjoy a 5% increase at the level of the public service. So that if we are asked to make sacrifice for the betterment of our country, then I believe that this whole debate then should be anchored around those things that we can make better. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I speak of what most of my colleagues mentioned today, except that I might take a slight departure. What I might say this afternoon may appear to be radical, appear to be. It may also be a bit controversial. But I feel within my conscience, and I also believe, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that when the people of St. Philip South voted for me to represent them in this honorable chamber, they did so on the basis that I would speak on their behalf and in their best interests. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, insurance is a fundamental. We must have insurance. And I urge every single Barbadian to make sure that their vehicles are insured. And perhaps In saying so, I'm reminded of the words that were said to me by a former outstanding Barbadian Prime Minister for 14 years as leader of the Barbados Labour Party, who said, "Young man, take your moral high ground first, and then speak your mind." And it is at this point, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that given that advice, I want to say that insurance must be given a lot of attention by us in administration. And that there should not only be a willingness on the part of insurance companies to collect, but equally, they have a fiduciary responsibility to pay. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have in my constituency people who come to me at my Wednesday clinics complaining that they're unemployed because of pain, because they had to give up the job, there was a motor car accident, and their insurance company has prolonged the settlement process to the extent that they have to engage a lawyer, and that to the extent the lawyer then had to go to court. Mr. Deputy Speaker, oftentimes there are things that can be settled willingly. And that wise, I call on Barbadians to make sure that they have their vehicles insured. I call on the insurance company to be more fair in their dealings with Barbadians when there's an accident. Because an insurance is what it is. You're insured. And so therefore, if after you are insured and you have paid, why should you suffer? I recognize, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that there are people, there will always be people who want to beat the system. But equally, I recognize too that the system takes care of them. But you cannot constantly lump the innocent with the guilty. I use this one size fit all for Barbadians and punish those who are genuinely claiming for injuries that took place in accidents. Now, why am I bold enough to say this, Mr. Deputy Speaker? I am because I have had the personal experience. And if I share with this honorable House my experience, perhaps we as a responsible government will be able to deal with matters like these. Because there was I, innocently going about my business, when the driver of a vehicle at top speed ran into the back of my vehicle and injured me. As it turned out, his insurance had expired, but he was on a piecemeal payment. And the insurance company canceled the policy and wrote to him and told him he was behind on his payment after I had the accident. I never got a settlement. These are the things that take place in Barbados. And so when we speak, we have to speak about a holistic Barbados. And that we have to be also, all of us in this honorable chamber, the voices of the people. Because as Cicero said, the good of the people is the greatest law. And that we must always have in our prefrontal cortex. We must be mindful always of the people. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, people get house fires through no fault of theirs. You get hurricanes and storms. And the very people who have been paying their insurance policies, paying their premiums, have to go through all kinds of contortions to prove that a claim is legitimate. And I am calling for some control mechanism, some body to regulate and deal with this over and above the supervisor of insurance. Some kind of investigative team, so that when motor vehicles in Barbados are involved in accidents and people are injured, settlement can come to them quicker. And oftentimes they have to pay the medical bills up front. Something must be done about that too. They have to pay the medical bills up front. And then, Mr. Deputy Speaker, await a settlement 3-4 years, sometimes 5 years down the road. We can't live like that anymore, because this is not the Barbados that we want. And equally, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we Barbadians also must develop a culture and an appetite for honesty as well. Because I believe that it is because of a lot of bogus claims as well that this one-size-fits-all has become the accepted norm. And I think it should stop. Mr. Deputy Speaker, you have situations where we have absolutely no freighting standards. To my mind, it is something that I urge the Minister, the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, and indeed the Honourable Member for St. Lucie, to look into. Freighting standards. I recall driving behind a truck, and there are 2 long metal pipes on that truck, not properly fastened. And so if the driver had to make a sudden stop, God knows what would happen to the vehicle behind. And we have to look at freighting standards for this country, where boxes are stacked on vehicles and not properly secured. And oftentimes you can drive by and see goods spill on the highway, bottles all across the highway, because we have no proper freighting standards in this country, so it is anything goes. That too, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we have to pay close attention to and bring an immediate fix, what I refer to always as a suitable fix. Because, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if we are going to take this country forward, it cannot be business as usual. And a lot of the practices that we engage in Barbados, we're certainly going to have to revisit and bring them up to 21st century expectation. Mr. Deputy Speaker, our roads. I am on record for saying that as we repair our roads and as we create new highways in Barbados, we must be mindful of 2 fundamental things, Mr. Deputy Speaker. One, we must be mindful always that there are disabled people in this country, that through their disability, it doesn't mean that they must be confined to home and that they can't live a normal life. And that with this age of technology where wheelchairs are motorized and people live normal lives by just getting into a wheelchair and being a regular citizen. But that we do not take into consideration in Barbados that in our communities and on our major highways, that we have to provide the ease of access, pavements, for them to utilize. But over and above all of that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we have to and we must, and I urge the Minister, the Honourable Member for Christchurch West too, develop a mechanism through which we start to consider no matter what the cost, because there's a price for progress. Where we have in our communities when a road is being fixed, and even if we have to acquire some portion of land, that we put in sidewalks. And I am getting complaints after complaints from people who walk to keep fit, where they have to battle with the traffic, sometimes battle with huge buses passing by. at express speed, Mr. Deputy Speaker? And how do we ask our pedestrians in a 21st century existence to compete with moving traffic that is moving at a rapid pace? And this is something that Barbados must embrace. And we have to get to that point, Mr. Deputy Speaker, where we say, oh, this is the transformation of Barbados. And so therefore, we have to take that on board. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am also one for discipline. I've said over and over that I've been raised by a grandmother, and I believe that each and every time my grandmother gave me a spanking, I didn't see it as corporal punishment. I saw it as a means to which she was trying to get a message through to me when I chose not to listen. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I will not tolerate certain types of pedestrian behavior as well. And we have, like I've seen in the UK, to protect our pedestrians, especially in our city, where they come to pedestrian walks, the zebra walks, and just dart across the road, no matter how the traffic is coming. Nobody cares. So a fellow walks across the road and he takes his time, he feels empowered. You must stop. It is wrong. Because oftentimes people come close to being injured. And as far as I understand it, you should wait for the traffic to come to a complete stop. And this madness about walking across the road at zebra crossing, we need to bring some control mechanism too. One, we need to put in the flashing lights. Two, in London, you actually have to go through a rail fencing before you get to the pedestrian walk. And what that is designed to do, to stop the rush onto the traffic. And if we are in a society where people have no discipline, then we are going to have to use mechanisms through which we can control them for their own good. And if you go down right now to Bridgetown by the traffic light, I think down there is Bridge Street onto High Street, where there's a chauffeur before you go to Parliament. Right there at that traffic light, people just dart across the street. The light is green, and people are walking across. You know what happens? Our senior citizens who are just following, the Marhill Street, thank you. Our senior citizens who are just following are walking across in front moving traffic. But we have to control that. Honourable Member for Christchurch West, I am saying to you right now that you need to look at that urgently, because this is a big problem. People walk across in droves as if the light has signaled for them to walk, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And perhaps we would do ourselves a favor if this is the kind of discourse we will want to have in a Barbados that is going forward, rather than waste our time talking about road tax and how it is affecting me. I paid the other day, and now I got to pay the introduction of the fuel surcharge as well, when in June 1st, 2017, you did both. And I have a conscience, and I believe that everybody has a right to speak his or her mind. But at the same time, I understand what it is like to be fair. And if this government had come and completely abolished road tax and say nothing more, and then introduce the fuel surcharge, there won't be no complaint. There will be nothing to complain about, because you can juxtapose the two. But because we want to be fair, and we want to say to the people that this is what we're doing, you get people being riled up. Well, I'm glad, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that we can bring closure to that, and that we can move forward. And I'm quite proud of my colleague, my two colleagues, to see what they have been able to develop where this is concerned. And I'm happy to see that not only at Cabinet, but also here in this honorable chamber, The minister is walking with his license plate. What is it, C1440? Mr. Deputy Speaker, you might want to make that an exhibit of the House. Document. Mr. Deputy Speaker, before I close, I listened carefully to the Honourable Member for Christchurch West when he spoke earlier today. And he spoke of equipment that he said is being cannibalized, equipment that is out of use. And there's a major problem for the government. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to say right across every ministry, if we were to do an audit, we will find the same problem. In my ministry, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm grappling with a problem up there at Carrington Factory. I did a tour up there. It hurt my heart, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And I'm not easily hurt. But what I saw up there was the mining of vehicles, tractors, trucks, loaders, trailers, and then thrown into the bush. But do you know that the BAMC does not have enough resources at this point in time? And all of those vehicles up there are being mined. Now, if you don't have resources, where the park's going? We need to find out. Over at Soil Conservation Unit, we have people who are involved in farming. The Corey Lane Nature Fund Ranch needed assistance to get land cleared. Couldn't get it cleared because the bulldozer that is supposed to do it has been out of service for months now, and no parts available. Mr. Deputy Speaker, these things anger me because we can do better. And when we seek to make excuses, where we've heard the refrain lost decade because it's over that period where all of this took place, you know. And you can think of the millions of dollars that we have stacked up at Carrington Factory. And we're at the BADMC, whilst they're doing a fairly good job over there, they too are short of equipment. But we can hear about corruption in Barbados and millions of dollars that are unaccounted for or being paid out for people for services rendered that bear no relation at all to the charges. So what do you want? You either want a better country, Mr. Deputy Speaker, or you want to see everybody in Barbados perish whilst you make excuses for your greed and your hunger for living large and becoming wealthy through corrupt means. The whole country pays the price, and only a few enjoy a decent life. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I believe that all Barbadians should now embrace where we are going with this, and that we should stop the complaining now and help us to build on our reprogram, retool and empower, retrain and enfranchise. I'm obliged to you.
You're welcome. Member for St. Thomas. St. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I want to, at the outset, indicate my support for the matter under discussion here today, sir. And I want, sir, at the outset, to indicate that the Honourable Member for Christchurch West and his support system and the Honourable Member for St. Lucie have really blessed my heart with the excellent work that that department has been doing over the last 3 months. We talk about 100 days as a government, and there are quite a number of other ministries that are fulfilling the roles that they have been undertaken, and indeed are bringing us to ensure that the mandate that we have set in our manifesto through the pledges to Barbadians are adhered to. I am deeply saddened at some of the things I witness every day, acknowledging that we will hear that I'm old and miserable or belong to the old-time days, but for me, the old-time days were the best of days. And it hurts, Mr. Speaker, to see that. So see where we are now. And when we compare it with the colonial times, where Barbadians were very poor, but extremely Christian grounded, adhering to rules and regulations, ensuring that they dot their I's and cross their T's, even though many of them did not go to school any further than the 4th or 5th standard. When you listen to them, they speak well, having not gotten any free secondary education or any tertiary education at all. And it really bothers me to see how a society that boasts of its educational sector and the disciplines and the achievements of Barbadians have risen so high, and I'm glad for it. Too many Barbadians, however, have stood on the shoulders of our forefathers and have not followed suit and have not continued with those principles, those attributes, and all the other things that are necessary to make a society just and a society that others can adapt and adopt some of the systems that would have been put in place that have served us so well for so many generations. Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, we conformed with the law. We made sure that whatever we did was within the law. We dotted our I's, and I'm saying we because I belong to that generation of more than 70 years. We dotted our I's, we crossed our T's, we understood each other, we even agreed to disagree on matters, but we never treated to it with violence or disrespect or threats, as we see nowadays in the smallest of incidents that occur. Accountability was the hallmark of the Barbadian culture. I want to repeat that again. Accountability was the hallmark of Barbadian culture. I want to encourage Barbadians to get back to the basics, get back to those standards that were set, those pillars that were built in this society to make us the proud people we are, where we are admired all over the world. Wherever you go, people say, what country are you from? And you say Barbados, they tell you, you all speak good English. I like your standards. You are well disciplined. I am seeing some breakdowns though, however, sir, that make me feel uncomfortable, and sometimes I go nowhere because I know my personality. And somebody will take me out with a blow. And I don't want to deal with anything called violence, because violence does not give answers. It does not make life any better. Indeed, it makes it worse, because whatever the violent experience might bring out, somebody is hurt, somebody loses a life, somebody loses a limb, something happens. So I want to stamp out the violence. I want to be non-violent and to have the opportunity and the privilege in my old age to live in a society that abhors violence. And so I admonish every Barbadian listening to us here and anybody else in the rest of the world to let us please come together as more seniors and talk with people, advise them, guide them, share the knowledge and the skill and the culture and all the other things that go with it with them, because some of them know no better, especially when they're persons in my age range and over who set no proper example for the youth to follow. So I'm going to touch on all of them. And I want to say that we as a people, recognizing what is happening in the rest of the world, and Barbadians haven't lost opportunities where donor funds were given for a number of projects that helped to sustain us and put us on the pinnacle that we are on now, are no longer there. We have been graduated out. of receiving, and many other countries in the world, and many of them need what we are not getting now, to be able to have them properly stabilized and for their citizens to live in peace and harmony. But Barbadian workers always took pride in offering high quality service, particularly in the public sector. But I know that the private sector does as well. And we are seeing so much training and retraining and so on. And I'm wondering, what is it worth when we're spending millions of dollars, but we're not seeing the benefits as we move along? It may be on paper, but we are not seeing and feeling it as we move around in this society, to say that the quality work and the good work ethics and the discipline that is necessary do not seem to be demonstrated, and it seems not to be permeating into the rest of the society, particularly our youth. And I encourage others, let us get back to basics and set the examples for our youth, that they understand accountability is pertinent. Accountability makes a difference. What is happening now, sir? Because in those days, old people wrote with their hands. And they tell you a sharp pencil is better than a long memory, so they will write. Many of them used a typewriter. And when they made mistakes, they had whatever that eraser would have been to clean out and type over or throw away the sheet of paper and do it over again. Now we have the technology that has taken over our lives in a very stupid way in some instances, but it is an excellent tool for us to use because it makes access easier and quicker, but we use the technology for most of the reasons where it should not be used for at all. And I'm saying that if you have a bunch of workers sitting down at a computer, they must ensure that words are spelled correctly, that people are addressed properly, and that the content and the substance of whatever communication there is solid and correct. We are letting the technology take over our country, and we're not managing our businesses and our offices in the way we know they must be managed. There are too many nuances, there are too many errors, and there's too much, sometimes disrespect too, because someone don't even know to say dear madam or dear sir or whatever. But we are seeing the challenges. I want to say we need to get some foolproof systems. And I go straight to the Honourable Minister for Public Works and Maintenance in relation to the licensing authority. That authority in the past wrote Barbadians to tell them a week or two before, your road tax is up or scheduled for payment, and you will walk with that little certificate or whatever you call it, that little reminder, and take it in and pay your road tax. All of a sudden it was finished with. Even now, insurance companies want their money. And they still send a little note to say, your insurance is due if today is the 27th or 28th of the month. Your insurance is due by the second week in September. Perhaps it could be the 7th of September if that is a working day. And that helped to guide people. That's why a lot of people, they don't remember, but some deliberately refuse. Barbadians always adhere to the law because they felt that character and a good reputation according to the Bible is better than riches or gold. And that character for poor people especially was always the hallmark and the guiding light for others to follow. So thousands of people, I heard over 20,000 this morning, and the Honourable Minister could correct me, have not paid road tax in a while. But we have over 100 and something thousand vehicles on the road. Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, I had my experience with some breaches that were done by a driver in 2001 that were not a level-headed girl. I do not know where he would be today. My vehicle was stationary. The young man was typing something on his phone. Cell phones were now coming in. On the street, on St. Stephen's, to turn into the day nursery, but I was on the straight before I got to the turn to go up by the St. Stephen's Church. And the young man ran into the back of my vehicle, 6 months old. broke off the thing that holds that back tire with the Vitara, had no license, had no road tax, had no insurance. You know, I only got a call from a lawyer last week asking me about the incident. Well, I'm near to Alzheimer's stage. So I only remember it's 2001 because that's what the lawyer reminded me of. And then I was castigated and cursed and ripped across the floor by the owner of the vehicle. A young man was driving a vehicle belonging to somebody else, and I'm saying, whiplash. And whiplash says, you're back, wherever, and you don't feel it the same day. The honourable member, the doctor from St. Philip North will tell you. And I was dragged through the gutter with somebody who ran into the back of my car. Thank Jesus I'm level-headed. Because if I were not level-headed, I do not know where I will be today. I wouldn't be in here. I can tell you for sure. No, I wouldn't be either. I want to say, sir, that right-thinking Barbadians must continue, though, despite the fact that the road tax has now been eliminated. I want them to pay their licenses. I want them to pay their insurance policies, because that is integral to persons who get injured, or even for the owners of the vehicles, if their vehicles get involved in accidents, that they will get the necessary compensation or the upgrades to their vehicles. I want to say, sir, it is madness to go in at the licensing authority. Some kind of change needs to happen there, because the Barbadian, the economy is losing millions of dollars annually because of what is happening in that license. The first thing, there are not enough testing officers when people go to get licenses. Students 16 years and over now going. What's the point in leaving your work, leaving your school or institution or wherever you are to go to renew your license, and then it is time to close off for lunch, or people have to go down? And I agree, the workers must be treated well. They have to have their lunch. They too have their own children, so they have to run out. They have illnesses, they have to go to the doctor. But the way the place is managed is not user-friendly, and Barbadians are not comfortable going there. And then when you go, oh, the camera here at the Pine isn't working, go to Oistins. And when you go to Oistins, they have you go somewhere in St. James, or if it is still down with the folks that I don't even know, or St. Peter, and you still can. It's like going to the license, to the department for your police certificate, and you're getting a little job, and you can't get that certificate till months. I have a man waiting for nearly 8 months for a birth certificate, because systems in Barbados are grinding to the ground, and unless you have a degree with this qualification madness that has taken over Barbados and destroyed a lot of families, unless you have a degree in something, you can't get a particular job. But then when you get the job, you're not performing, or you don't have the know-how, or you don't know how to tell the customer when he gets in front of you good morning in response to their good morning. Something is wrong with the psyche of my people. And we here as the leaders in this country have to get down in the little tributaries in our communities, have to get on the blocks, have to get into the churches and the schools and work with our young people. Otherwise we will have a lost generation. There's not enough to have a lost decade. I have a lost generation too. We need to get back to basics and work with them. So these few officers are on the service is poor. Productivity is lost. But when you go for a renewal of your license and you get there for 8:30, then you have to wait something till 1 or 2 o'clock, and then you hear the thing ain't working. And you have to go back and ask your boss for a little more time, and the boss is saying, well, where could you have gone? Until the boss's opportunity comes for him to go and renew his, he understood. Or he understands. Or for the school children to go and waste all of that time, and then they can't go for the license because there are few testing officers. I am through you asking the Honourable Minister to see how best he can release a few more of the workers there, because he's overstaffed in a way that's different from anywhere else in his department, the Honourable Minister's department. Please reorganize the system so that more of those persons can test people for driving, because when you go for a test, you pay some money. And there are persons who are working, that is their job, to teach people to drive. When they have to wait until the testing officer is available, they lose a whole day's work too. So it has that spiraling impact that we can avoid it. It was not like that before, when you had to go to the main guard. and the police were responsible, you reverse and reverse, got your license, you were probably tested, you're gone. Now we don't have enough testing officers, so before you can wink your eye, you have to go back to your work, ask for a little time next day, loss of productivity, loss of your job, frustration will kick in, and then you're not so sure. You're blaming the officers. We really can't blame them because they're overworked with the number of issues that they have to face and poor equipment that needs replacing. I also want, sir, to say that I welcome this elimination of the road tax. And I recommend that government now starts to look deeper into the proper regulation with the licenses. The licenses meaning the registration numbers on the vehicles. Some of them you see a piece of card pushed up in front by the windshield. Some of them have numbers that you can't see them when they pass you by, they're so faded. I tell people, if that number plate was on my vehicle, the police will want to charge me and they will be doing the right thing. Because it's not visible. You can't see it from the front nor the back. The water seems to permeate where the numbers are, and they're all turned either dark brown or almost black. They're not standardized, and therefore if they're not standardized, you don't know what to look for. Some of them are written in letters that look as though they are cursive writing. Others are written in some big ugly numbers that you can see the numbers, but they're so cluttered you can't tell for sure what the numbers are saying. Some are so tiny you can't, some now have lights in them. Perhaps that is good too, because you can see the number plates ahead of you once the lights in them are burning. But that has to be properly organized, and there are too many illegal number plates on the road. A lot of accidents are happening with these illegal number plates, and then when you check, the persons don't have any vehicles at all registered in the licensing authority. How did we get it done so well when we didn't have the technology in the past? But now we have the technology. With a press of a finger, you can tell. We can't seem to get it right. Something is definitely wrong with the way we are doing business now. And I want for the Ministry of Public Works and Maintenance to ensure that the authenticity of those registration numbers will be ready to save those risks. Those phony numbers must go. When the accidents occur, you're in trouble. Sometimes they use the vehicles with these phony numbers for stealing, doing burglaries, doing scams, death as a result of it, or injury, and then the perpetrators get away because you don't know who the vehicles belong. I know there's a long-standing problem in the licensing authority in relation to persons who had a scam, grinding down the chassis number and the engine numbers of vehicles. And I cannot understand how in a small country, 45, that's last year's recollection, not this year yet, 45 Toyotas and the little Samurais or wherever they are, I don't know the words so well, I don't care either, have been stolen in this small country of 166 square miles and cannot be traced. Where have they gone? Are they in somebody's garage? Have they been stripped? Is somebody selling the parts? Something is wrong. I have the picture of my neighbor's own that they were trying to get in the disconnected numbers, but I think my dogs sought to spark the thieves and they got away. We must make sure that those numbers and those kinds of negative habits are taken out. Now I want to get to my favorite talk before I go, because I know when I pass through Jackson tonight and the ZR man threatens me, I know what I will do. All I will do is take the phone up and call the police. I can't do no more. Because every time you have to criticize them for their poor management and the destruction of our young people in this country, somebody calls me a female rabbit when I pass, or they say what they feel like. I have no problem with them using their mouths, sir. But I have a problem when they are going to park on the pedestrian crossing in Jackson near the entrance to Sherwin School, and you have to toot your horn. They're on the pedestrian crossing, and people, they're soliciting on the crossing. It is wrong. And therefore, when you say anything to most of them, it is always the abusive language and so, well, I'm not going to step down to their level because I know better than that. But I want something to be done in Jackson, especially next week, when school children will be out to school. Because that is when you're going to get the serious problems. We've lost too many lives last year with people trying to cross in front of a ZR or in front or behind of a bus or whatever, when those are lives that are lost, that could have been saved, if the people who were doing the crossing did it right, or if those drivers did not flag down and call across people. You can't let people step out of the vehicle and then call them in front of the vehicle and tell them cross in front of me when you're on a busy road and especially on a pedestrian crossing. I saw a minibus on a video only this week gone. It might have been an old one. A lady crossed down there by the City of Bridgetown Credit Union 2 weeks ago. And that lady got a blow called John, almost going to the end of the pedestrian crossing she was. And we have a lot of people who seem not to care because they have not had any pain yet. But Mr. Chairman, I also want to go forward to indicate that the TASI project, and I know you can hear me, sir, but looking at the Honourable Minister, I am an aggrieved woman. I feel as though I've lost triplets with what has happened with that TASI project at Sturgis, sir. Not every Barbadian can buy a vehicle. Not every Barbadian has a friend or a partner who can give them a lift. And my people were savaged by the last administration, Mr. Speaker. The Democratic Labour Party destroyed St. Thomas, not a road. Even the one that only haunted the hot mix at Rockhampton Road was untouched. It now has big pools with marl and water and mosquitoes because the rain falls in St. Thomas every day, sir. And this last government would not touch it. That TASI project took over, I believe, when the numbers of buses started to, well, when there was a depletion of the buses in 2014-15. But what happened, it was a creative idea that did not materialize. My citizens, my constituents, my friends in St. Thomas on the Sturgis route had at least 12 transport board buses per day. Now, mind you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there is a road called Lion Castle Road, more than a mile long, lonesome, dangerous, massive rocks overhanging all that. And the folks in there benefited since 2003 from a transportation system. The transport board bus will drive and go in, deposit the passengers, pick them up, get them to town. Highland is another remote area. 1st and 2nd Avenue, Wexmore Hall, Bryans Road, Sturgis, Vault Road, and so on. You know, Mr. Speaker, the buses only, Mr. Deputy, the buses only, meaning now the minibuses they send up there, only travel the main road by the post office, and people from Lion Castle and those communities have to get off the bus on the main road with the parcels of groceries that they had not become accustomed to anymore for more than 10 years. They walk with their groceries. Some of them are disabled, so somebody has to give them a lift, give them a ride, something. Many of them are pregnant women, many of them are aged. And the minibuses that were put on the route during that period with the TASI project got through licking. This government, the taxpayers of Barbados, Mr. Deputy Speaker, have shelled millions of dollars into those private vehicles. One government transport board bus now per day, and that has been happening for the time. And then all the rest were minibuses that did not fulfill the needs. When they didn't break down, and the brakes let go, the tires go flat, and they breach every rule, my people had nowhere to go. They had to stand up and beg for a lift. You know, today, Mr. Speaker, one single transport bus still, 2 or 3 buses the Honourable Minister tried to assist me with to travel the route, still breaking down. Indeed, the transport bus break down at the old gas station in Wexmore Hall Thursday, ran out oil from all the way down Ashford Hill. Again, Thursday night, one going Shorey Village, all the back of the bus turned up in Bridgefield, and then the MTW has to come and sprinkle sand to stop people from getting into accidents. That one bus, so when that one bus breaks down with you, down in Lancaster, and you're going up to the Vault Road or Allerview, you are in the duck's guts. You are in the duck's guts. And Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is happening all of the time. And my people are tired. I have written officially, I've got a 6-page letter coming to the Honourable. I don't mind once I get in the part with St. Thomas. Mr. Speaker, sir, Deputy Speaker, I've got a 6-page letter coming to the Honourable Minister and to his support system, sir, the Honourable Member for St. Peter. And I want a town hall meeting because my people have lost their work. Every morning you're telling me you're coming late because there ain't no bus. Where in Barbados you live? Or St. Thomas is a developing community. So it's as though the workers are telling lies. My school children cannot get to school. They can't get up to the Grantley Adams, down bus or no bus. I saw children from Grantley Adams at 7:30 at night last term. Now coming from Grantley Adams, I met the bus at Bridgefield. Children hungry, they tell poor people children so. Not all the time, Mr. Steps, because it has to stop. It has to stop. But you know the final thing now, on that one, ZRs are now playing the route because ZRs were being sold in Austins. Minibuses, by the permits, and taxi permits and ZMs. And they believe they heard limousine too. $10,000 and $3,000 and all kind of money. I want the Honourable Minister to make sure that those buses and those vehicles have been registered in the licensing authority. Otherwise, they are illegal on the road. No ZR is to be traveling in Sturgis. But you know what? When you don't have horse, you have to ride cow, don't you know, Mr. Deputy Speaker? So when the people see a ZR come that is illegal in the area, they get into it because they want to get to work. They want their children to get to school. School starts in 2 weeks. I am asking through you, sir, for the Honourable Minister to give me at least 2 transport board buses. If they run the route, it will help me. I do not want to see another ZR up there because they're racing, they're skid turning to get away from the other buses. They got all the numbers outlined in my letters. I have no fear because if any of them assaults me, crap or smoke their pipe. And I'm not going to do anything but call the police because I'm going to abide by the law. I can't be saying abide by the law and then I breach it. And the final comment, sir, I'm not going to talk about the potholes and that kind of thing now. That's not the thing for that. I want the Honourable Member, as a final comment, to treat the motorcycles on the road. We have had silent zones by the hospitals and by our schools. And all of a sudden, the fellas and the girls who've been to school, perhaps they didn't do much, but most of them must have done a lot, are now riding motorcycles by Queen Elizabeth Hospital with the muffler cut off. And those poor sick people in there cannot even get a rest. By the schools, it is louder. In almost every artery, every village now, they're coming from all over and they're doing the wheelie on the highway. Well, I scotch up a little bit because I would like to hear it. And I would like anybody to be. I want the Honourable Minister to put up some silent zone signs, please. And those who do not adhere, let them have to deal with the law. Signage is critical. I am begging publicly for a sign by the Warrens Polyclinic, an area where all forms of individuals have to go to get treatment. For the buses that park on the pedestrian crossing at Warrens Polyclinic, blocking off those who come through from, I'm trying to remember the community when you go through by the tobacco factory, old tobacco factory, but the vehicles are blocking off all the businesses, Friendship. Those minibuses and ZRs are parking till sometimes the transport board bus cannot go there. That is indiscipline of the highest order. If an ambulance has to go in or come out of the polyclinic, it cannot get in because the fellas are there soliciting people who are coming over from the chicken barn and the other places on the right and other businesses. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I thank the Honourable Minister for the excellent work he has done. We are working on our mission, mission critical. And I believe that this aspect of what we are doing here will help to add to the plans and the programs, the policies and the programs that this Barbados Labour Party has for our people. We are still very deep in the woods economically, but I believe that if we put the system in place where the dialogue is taking place, the ministers are communicating with Barbadians, they're on the calling programs, the Honourable Prime Minister is doing her best from her end. But we know we're in a deep hole. You heard of the large figures, sir, that are missing, the amounts of funds that are missing, and whatever challenges there are, the accountability that is lacking. I want for everyone, these honourable ministers in here, whether they're young or old as I or older, stick to the necessary accountability. Talk with people and give them the truth and be firm and resolute in whatever they have to do, because at the end of the day, if the leaders are not carrying out their duties, obviously the rest of the public will want to not to conform with rules and regulations. And therefore I close by saying we must as a society get back to basics. those aspects of our moral values, the virtues, the good lifestyle we know, living by example, and taking our fellow man into our confidence and working and shaping them to be the best citizens there can be. I close by saying, no man is an island, no man stands alone. Each man's joy is joy to me, each man's grief is my own. Unless we work together, unless we come up with these visionary ideas, unless we have dialogue with the residents and the people of Barbados to let them understand what it's all about, how they will benefit, how they can buy into the process, we are not going to be able to carry each other's griefs and love and interests and achievements in the way we should. And I want to say, together we stand, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Divided we will fall if we do not show that kind of human, brotherly and sisterly love that should take Barbados to the next level, where at the end of the day we all feel safe on our roads, in our homes, in our churches, in our schools and the other institutions that are the pillars of this society that will either make us or break us as a people. I want to highly commend those two honourable members, the honourable member for Christchurch West and the honourable member for St. Lucie, for the efforts that they have put into it so far. And I commend, sir, this road traffic bill amendment to your attention, sir. I wish to thank you.
The Michael Northwest.
Mr. Speaker, sir, Deputy Speaker, I rise to support this bill, Road Traffic Act Cap 295. Being a man of God, sir, I would like to quote Psalm 37, verse 23. The steps of the righteous are ordered by the Lord. And I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the member for Christchurch West and the member for St. Lucie for taking this step to make our roads safe. For years, people have been suffering because of vehicle owners, sir, using our roads and not paying road tax and becoming involved in accidents and endangering the lives of commuters on the road. And for years, the government have been losing revenue because of these same vehicle owners not paying road tax or insurance, but using the roads of Barbados. But today, sir, I'm happy to say that those days are gone. And I can honestly say that there is still room for improvement with this bill. And the member for Christchurch West announced earlier today that the penalty for persons driving without insurance would increase from $1,200 to $5,000. My only concern about that is how long a person will have to pay this fine. If a person will take the same time to pay this fine, matching the same amount of years driving on the road without any insurance, I can honestly say that we will have a problem. And if you divide the 5,000 by 4 years, in the event that a person had been driving 4 years without any insurance, it is just $50 more than what the present fine is now. With that being said, I think that a time span should be given to any person caught driving without insurance on our roads. And I said that, sir, to say that we have some people that, in Bajan terms, lie when it comes to paying paying fines, right? And if a man take, let's say, 4 years to pay $5,000 to the court, right? Obviously, you need to take control of that. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I do support the bill, and I think that a deadline or a period of time should be given to any person caught driving on our roads without any insurance. And I like the move that the member for Christchurch West took, or the decision made, to distinguish commercial vehicles from private vehicles. I support that move. And this is a move, sir, that will implement and also help to bring order to the way some people may try to abuse the system in trying to pay the cheapest tax possible. And the last government, in my view, sir, for the last 10 years, spent more time, to me, drinking milk and eating cookies on the job than really doing what was necessary to make things right in this country. And it's sad to say, or it's sad to see now that this government have to clean up the mess caused by the former member for St. Michael South and the former member for St. Michael Northwest, because if those former members had took the decision to govern and to lead, we wouldn't be in this mess today. And there's an old-time saying, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that the Lord don't come, but he does sing. And to God be the glory for sending such a leader like the member of St. Michael Northeast to lead this country and to deliver and to help us get out of this mess that we are in today. And for having a government like the Barbados Labour Party government and a Prime Minister who also know how to govern. And I can say, sir, that I trust that these measures outlined by the Member of Parliament for Christchurch West will change things for the better. I trust that the measures outlined will give people of Barbados better roads to drive on. I trust that the measures outlined will put more pressure on those illegal road users. And with that being said, sir, I oblige.
Thank you. Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. As I seek to wrap up debate on this Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2018. First and foremost, as is customary, let me thank all members who contributed and spoke in this debate. And bear in mind, if I don't mention you in my wrap-up, everything that was said and every request we have taken on board between myself or the member for St. Lucie, the minister in the Ministry of Transport and Works. Let me at the outset say that when Barbados has a mass casualty incident, it is normally a mass casualty incident caused by a transport board bus or PSV or something like that, because those are the transportation devices that carry many people simultaneously. So whenever you open your paper and you see a mass casualty event, it is a PSV or a transport or bus. Inevitably, that is more often than not the cause. So we are very aware and very cognizant that we have to bring order back to our roads. And we are working towards this. We are looking at the possibility of having random drug testing, random alcohol testing. We're in discussions with the PSV owners. We've had 3 meetings with them. I wouldn't want to prejudice our discussions, but they too are prepared to work with us to bring order back to the roads. But there are certain things that we have to agree to before we can achieve that. I understand the member for Christchurch East and his militant way of doing things, but it is a process, and we have to get this process right, because at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, there are 750 public service vehicles on our roads, and there are only 80 or 90 transport board buses. So the vast majority of people are transported in Barbados through public service vehicles. The vast majority. And we have to recognize that the public service vehicles are our partners in transport in this country. And we have to get our relation right with them. I heard the Honourable Member speak about traffic lights and breaking traffic lights. We are working on a program to minimize that. I don't want to prejudice Cabinet by speaking too much more about it. But bear in mind, and you would have seen in other jurisdictions, that there are cameras that are put on traffic lights. And when you break the traffic light, a picture is taken of the vehicle and of you, and they send you a ticket. And suffice to say, if that is done in other jurisdictions, it is very likely that that could come to Barbados as well. Roadside mechanics? Yes, we have lots of roadside mechanics. And it brought me to a point that I didn't bring up before, which is that a lot of people don't know or understand, but no derelict vehicles have been picked up in Barbados since 2012. No, let me say that again so the people of Barbados hear me very, very clearly. No derelict vehicles have been picked up in Barbados since 2012. So for 5.5 years in Barbados, derelict vehicles have been accumulating across this country. Well, we are going to bring a stop to that very, very shortly. And we are going to have a national cleanup program. And part of that national cleanup program will involve picking up all or as many of the derelict vehicles that we can and get these vehicles off of our roads and attended to in a proper manner. But none have been picked up since 2012. And let me be frank, the reason that they were not picked up is because an injunction was brought to stop how they were disposed of in, I believe, the crusher site at Bagatelle in St. Thomas. And that injunction stopped the then administration from picking up the vehicles. But that should never have stopped them, because there's also another scrap business at Vaucluse. And what they should have done is to enlist the use of that business to be able to take care of derelict vehicles. But instead, they decided, well, if there's an injunction, we can just leave the vehicles scattered all across the country. Well, that is going to come to an end. And we are going to embark on a program to get those derelict vehicles dealt with and off of our roads again. Because it's about bringing order to this country and order to this society. The Honourable Member also spoke about noise pollution. And I agree that we have a noise pollution problem. But I want to go further. We also have an air pollution problem. And maybe we should be looking at emissions testing. And that is something that is seen in other jurisdictions as well. And again, I don't want to prejudice cabinet, but emissions testing is seen in other jurisdictions, and there's a great possibility that we will see emissions testing here. I heard the Honourable Member speak about loss of, the Honourable Member for St. James South speak about loss of productivity as people wait in various traffic jams and so on. And it took me back to a speech that I made when I was on the other side, speaking about the very same thing, speaking about how hours are lost, hours of production, and when you have thousands of people stuck in a traffic jam, they are not producing. It's costing us not only from productivity, it's costing us for diesel, it's costing us in foreign exchange, it's costing us in wear and tear. It costs. And we have to look for ways and means to enhance our productivity and reduce the congestion on our roads. And part of that involves getting people to adhere to the laws of the land. Because invariably, when there's a big traffic jam, it's because there's an accident at the top of the road. Or there's somebody has illegally parked, some person has gone off the road or whatever it is, partly because they're not following the rules and regulations set down by the land. And this is a land of laws, and we have to follow the laws each and every day. I heard an Honourable Member speak about the breathalyzer and other equipment, and I want to inform you that we are very much involved in bringing that legislation back. I believe we're going to set up a committee to look at those other road traffic amendments, and we'll be looking to get the breathalyzer, which I fully agree with, back on our roads. Because drunk driving is a serious problem. And it not only goes as drunk driving, because it's not only alcohol, it's impaired driving. Because people don't only abuse alcohol, they abuse other medications as well. Not only marijuana, they also abuse prescription drugs. And so we're going to go further, and not only it would be assessing alcoholic use, but a complete assessment of impaired driving as a whole, rather than just sticking to one drug. I heard the Honourable Member talk about permits and Z permits and so on. And let's be frank, the previous administration issued almost, I believe, 250 to 300, can't remember the number, 300 more Z permits than they had numbers to go with them. And it's a problem that the Cabinet of Barbados is going to have to deal with. Because when you issue a permit to a person telling them you are approved for a taxi, but you do not have the numbers to give them because your numbers are capped, that person has a reasonable expectation to get that permit, to get that taxi. And if you do not fulfill that, you have neglected in your duty to be able to fulfill that person's reasonable expectation. And you now have put the government at Barbados at significant risk. Because those people who received letters of approval for a taxi permit, but we don't have the numbers to give them the taxi permit, they might say, well, we are going to sue the government. Because we have now gone and expensed ourselves, ordered a car, expecting that we're going to get a taxi permit to get the income to pay for the car, but we do not have the numbers to issue, and we're having to tell people to hold on, till we resolve this matter. A resolution is coming. But I don't want to prejudice Cabinet, but suffice to say, this concept of fake taxis got to come to end too. Because it cannot be that you are given a Z permit to have a taxi, but you never show any income from the use of that taxi on your tax. Now, if you are given a Z permit for a taxi, and then after 5 years you want duty-free concessions because you had a taxi, but you can't show anywhere on your income tax where you had income from the taxi, we have to look at that again. And that is coming to the Cabinet soon as well. Online renewal of licenses, I've been after the Minister, Data Processing, and that is on our agenda as well. So I want the people to know that it is on our agenda. It is actually a manifesto pledge, I believe, and it's something that we intend to implement as a matter of urgency. And it is something that we're working on, but we're working with the data processing, the Ministry for Data Processing, to get that implemented as quickly as possible. And it goes further, not only online payment for licenses, but we want to get a ticketing system where you could pay your ticket online as well. So in other jurisdictions, for argument's sake, when you go through the traffic light and you have broken the traffic light, you get a ticket, and you don't have to go to court. You pay that ticket online. You go onto a website and you put your credit card number in and the expiry date and so on, and you pay for that ticket online. If you want to then argue that ticket, then you go to court and you go into the court process rather than accepting when you pay that ticket online. Now, the reason that we went for the sticker, and I'll explain because the honourable member is not there. First thing, when you get your sticker annually, you don't have to tear off the old sticker. You put the new sticker over the old sticker. That's the first thing. But the reason we went for a sticker and put the sticker at the rear license plate is because everybody now that drives behind you will get to see whether you are up to date on your insurance or not. Normally, when the disc was on the front, nobody driving behind you can see your disc or check whether you had a road tax or not. People would have to stop you and then inspect your disc. And when you look back, how many times were you stopped and had your disc inspected? Not very often. But every day, or very, very often, there's going to be somebody driving behind you, and it may be a police officer who may not have set up a place to stop and inspect your disc, but he will be able to see immediately whether you're driving on the roads illegally and without insurance. And by the way, this is not new to the world. There's no point reinventing the wheel. This is done over multiple jurisdictions. You might not be able to see it because you're a little further away, but when you get the distance between what two cars would be, it's quite easy to see. 300 million Americans and 30 million Canadians cannot be wrong.
That's right.
They have used this system for, I don't know how many, Mr. Deputy Speaker, you lived in Canada.
Yeah.
And
is it reflective?
This system,
is it reflective?
It's reflective. Okay. You lived in Canada, and this system was in place for decades. 30 million Canadians and 300 million Americans. They call it the tags, whether your tags are up to date or not up to date. Now, we used the DIS system because that was the English system, and we were a Commonwealth, and we used the DIS system. But even now in England, they're looking to move to a tag system rather than a DIS system that they have used for decades. So this is where we've gone to. This is where the world is going to, where everything is put on the tag, on the license plate, rather than the disc that we've had in the past. And that's why we're going to the sticker. Route scheduling. Buses are a real problem. The last administration, I don't think in the 8 years, bought any buses. So we have an aging bus fleet. We have a problem if meeting our requirements. We are supposed to have 189 buses on our roads just to meet our requirements. Many days we are struggling to see 80 buses because buses break down for various reasons. The indicator handle's broken off. The brake lights are out. A tire is punctured, 2 tires, whatever. We struggle every day at the Transport Board to get those buses on the road. And we are struggling, put on a second set of mechanics to work at nights under the lights to get our bus availability up. Not to mention the fact of costing for parts, inability to source parts. Specific parts must be sourced because sometimes these buses were purpose-built buses, built specifically for Barbadian roads. Getting parts can be a problem. Paying for the parts is a problem because you know the transport board is in its own difficulties. Getting proper mechanics and access to mechanics who can service the buses. I did a tour with UCAL. UCAL said they had 80 mechanics and it wasn't enough. The transport board has, I believe, 30 mechanics and it's not enough. So we have problems with mechanics, problems with parts, problems with access to parts. Tremendous difficulties, but we are struggling with it every single day. And not only access to the buses, but we're going to go through a whole routing and scheduling program. You're a member of St. Thomas, I heard you. I've heard you many times on the matter of not getting the buses on that Sturgis route. And I must tell you, I've immediately contacted the chairman, who you know well, and asked him to please get Sturgis at least another 2 buses on that route. With respect to electric vehicles, yes, we recognize that because electric vehicles are not having to buy gas or buy diesel, that they're essentially not paying a road tax. But I see it the other way. I see it as a means of incentivizing people to move away from using fossil fuels and moving to electric vehicles. So it's not that they're getting away from a road tax, but they're being incentivized so that we would use more electric vehicles and less vehicles that contribute to greenhouse gases and the effects of those kinds of fuels. So the licensing authority, we have lots of problems there, and we are taking it head on, and we will be working to fix all of the problems that we have at the licensing authority. But we can't run before we walk, and we're building a foundation. And part of that foundation is getting this bill through. Now, I heard an honourable member say that I should make this a document of the House. And it reminded me of a previous member who made 2 tins of corned beef a document of the House. I don't know. Oh, and okras. And if 2 tins of corned beef and some okras could be made a document of the House, then I'm happy to make this license plate, and it will go down in the annals of history as a license plate now being made a document of the House.
That's very good.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Minister in the Ministry of Transport and Works, the Honourable Member for St. Lucie, and he has given tremendous service not only to this bill, but to improving and assisting in the work that we do at the ministry. It is a large ministry. We have lots to do, partly because the people before us did not do what they had to do in a good and timely fashion. But we cannot do it all in a short space of time. We know we have a lot to do. We have a board, and we're ticking off one by one everything that we have to accomplish. But rest assured that we will get there in the end. Mr. Speaker, I'm obliged, and I ask that this bill be read a second time.
Everybody seconded? Seconded? Seconded?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I ask. Okay.
Seconded. The question is that this bill be read the second time. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I ask that you do not leave the chair and the House be resolved into committee for further consideration of this
The question
bill.
is that I do not leave the chair and this House resolve itself in committee. Seconded? Seconded. The question is that I do not leave the chair and this House resolve itself in committee. Supplies. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
This House is now in committee.
Ready? Ready? Want me to call?
Clause 1.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that clause 1 stand part.
Question is that clause 1 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. All honourable members against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that clause 2 stand part.
Question is that clause 2 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All honourable members against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
So do from clause 2. Do 2 to... Madam Chairman, clauses 3 on 3 to 10. Clauses 3 to 10.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that clauses 3 to 10 stand part.
I beg to second.
Question is that clauses 3 through 10 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All honourable members against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clauses 11 to 15.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that clauses 11 to 15 stand part.
I beg to second that.
Question is that clauses 11 through 15 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All honourable members against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clauses 16 to 20.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that clauses 16 and 20 stand part.
I beg to second that.
Question is that clauses 16 through 20 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clauses 21 to 25.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that clauses 21 and 25 stand part.
I beg to second that.
Question is that clauses 21 through clause 25 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All honourable members against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clauses 26 to 30.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that clauses 26 to 30 stand part.
Question is that clauses 26 through 30 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clauses 31 to 34.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that clauses 31 to 34 stand part.
Question is that clauses 31 through 34 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All honourable members against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clauses 35 to 38.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that clauses 35 to 38 stand part.
Question is that clauses 5 through 38 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All honourable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
First schedule.
Madam, I beg to move that the first schedule be the schedule to the bill.
The first schedule to the bill.
First schedule be the first schedule to the bill.
The question is that the first schedule be the first schedule to the bill. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. All honourable members against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The second schedule.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that the second schedule be the schedule to the bill.
The question is that the second schedule be the schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All honorable members against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Report.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and report to His Honor the passage of one bill in committee.
The question is that I now leave the chair and report to the Deputy Speaker the passing of one bill in committee. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. All honorable members against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chairman of committees have reported the passing of one bill in committee.
Pardon? Mr. Deputy Speaker, I do now ask that this bill be read a third time.
Seconded. The question is that this bill be read a third time. All those honorable members in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now move that this bill be passed and so cited as the Road Traffic Amendment Bill of 2018.
The question is that this bill be now passed and be so cited. All honorable members in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. The ayes have it. This bill is now passed and be so cited.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, be committal of papers.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am commanded to lay on behalf of the Honourable Minister of Finance the Barbados estimates of 2018-2019.
Yeah.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, revert to government business.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, this brings us to the end of government business of the day. I beg to move that this sit-in now adjourn until Tuesday, the 11th of September at 10 a.m.
Question is that this House be now adjourned until Tuesday, 11th of September at 10 o'clock in the morning. All honorable members in favor say aye. Those against say no. Methinks the ayes have it. This House is now adjourned until Tuesday, the 11th of September at 10 a.m.